So this is a tale of intrigue, danger, a little bit of foolhardiness, and well, hopefully we'll give you a little bit of insight into how the Chinese beggar gangs work. It's been a while since I've sat down and actually, had a beer and told you guys a story. And the reason being is that I usually catch everything on camera, but this time around, in the heat of the moment, I made a mistake, and instead of recording what I thought I was recording, I ended up turning the camera off every time I thought I was recording, and then turning it on every time I thought I'd stopped recording. So I have little patchy bits here and there of the ground, but I thought that this is a story that's worthy of relating to all of you. And also, it may give you quite a lot of insight into how things here in China work. So before we get into the sort of heat of it, and which is basically this altercation that I had with a beggar lord, I think it's probably better that I start off by telling you exactly what happens every year here, and the sort of state of tradition and religion in China. Now, I'm married into a Chinese family, and I've obviously been here for about 11 years, and I've noticed, that religion is not a big part of China. In fact, it's a very, very small, insignificant part, because basically there was a time in recent history, as everybody knows, you can go read in your history books, where anything to do with the old stuff, so in other words, any kind of tradition, religion, so temples, statues, everything like that, Buddhism, all that kind of stuff, was basically just completely wiped out. Like, actually, people were told, the young children especially, the sort of teenagers, go out, destroy anything that's old, get rid of all the old values, because in order for us to progress forward, we need to start with a clean slate. So they did. They went and burned down temples, statues were destroyed, artworks were destroyed, everything was destroyed. And in the process, traditions, older traditions and religion and that kind of thing were basically banned, thrown out the window, and, well, destroyed. So that's why in modern day China, things like religion do not really feature. However, a lot of the traditions did survive. Unfortunately, the traditions that actually survived are usually a little twisted and basically focused on money. So let me explain money and greed, I should say. Let me explain to you what basically happens here. Now, of course, I am using sweeping generalizations here. There are people who are religious in China. There are people who kind of quite vehemently follow their beliefs and have their little, especially down here in Guangdong, because I guess maybe because of its proximity to Hong Kong, a lot more tradition survived here in the Guangdong region than further up in China. But basically, you will find some people in their shops and businesses and homes, they'll have little altars where they burn incense and stuff. You do get that, but it's not as common as you'd think. Most people kind of just, live their lives in a very agnostic sort of a way, and that's just the way it is. However, there's this thing every single year, and I've noticed it all around the south of China, not just in this province, but any southern part, and I'm pretty sure it goes on up in the northern and central parts too, although I haven't seen it with my own eyes. So what happens is people go once a year to these temples, and what they do is they go and they light incense, and they do this thing called bai or pray, to the various different gods. And what they do is they line up at these different altars, get to the front, and there's like a little collection box, and they put some money in there, okay? And it's quite interesting because you normally see people carrying wads of sort of yimao notes, which is basically 10 Chinese cents notes. It's the lowest common denominator, but it's kind of like the more money you put in, the more chances of you getting your wish. So people are shoving money in these little boxes and basically praying for wealth, health, praying to have children, praying to find a husband, praying to find a wife. It's the basic kind of thing, just asking for something that they want. And how it works is basically offering money gives you a better chance, this thing happening. And obviously, the more money you offer, the more chance of this thing happening to you. So it's a kind of a strange little tradition and ritual that happens every year. And I've noticed that people who don't even follow religion, people that aren't actually very traditional, they'll still go to the temple because it's kind of a, I guess, a little selfish thing, or it's kind of like playing the lotto. It's like, yeah, it may as well go try anyway, you know. So people that, you know, will not have any dealings with any kind of traditions or going to any temples for the rest of the year, this one time they will go and give a little bit of money in the offering box and ask for something. They also have these different like wishing wells where you can throw money, or even these kind of towers which you can throw money into, and if you get money in there you can make a wish, you know, a typical kind of thing, similar to Western, you know, traditions where we throw money in a wishing well. And so, you know, it's difficult for me to say it's anything religious. I'd say it's more just tradition, and like a wishing well, it's kind of the thing where you go there and you want something and you throw some money in and you kind of ask for it. Okay. And the thing is, if you do get your wish, which, for instance, let's say you wish to have a boy and you have a boy, you have to go back the following year to the same sort of altar, give more money and say thank you, because if you don't do that, your luck will change bad, you know, that kind of thing. So it's basically just a it's an interesting tradition. I'm going to leave it at that. Now, the reason why I'm telling you about this whole tradition is it's very important to the story. You see, during this time of year, and when you're out there asking for all these, you know, different favors from the different gods, it's very important to be charitable, because if you're charitable, it ups your chances of, you know, your wishes coming true. And if you are not charitable, you know, obviously it takes away your chance of it becoming true. So, as you can imagine, this is where the beggars come in. All right, and it's quite a sight to see. As soon as you leave the temples, and this big one that I went to in Guangzhou with my wife, the reason she was there, she'd apparently, you know, before she met me, she'd gone to the temple and kind of asked to find a husband, and well, she found me, so you know, she was going back to say thank you. As we left the temple, the street, because there's basically one big street that you walk down to get away from the whole temple complex, it's just lined with beggars. Now, I did a video about the fact that you don't see disabled people in China, you know, because usually they're kept indoors, or, you know, there aren't really very good facilities for disabled people in China. But anyway, it's like a circus freak show. Everyone who's got any kind of deformity, you know, burn victims, people missing limbs, you know, any kind of weird kind of or terrible affliction, you will see it there, because now is the best time for beggars to make money, obviously, because as people come out of the temple, they feel obliged to be charitable. So, you know, you see these beggars and you're like, better give a little bit of money, otherwise my wish won't come true. So, of course, it's like a monopoly, and you have to run this gauntlet down this road where on both sides of the road, they're just beggars everywhere trying to get your money. Now, we left the temple, and while I was walking, I observed this one group of beggars, which really ticked me off. Just give me a second, I gotta take a sip. So what was happening is they had a young girl, and I guess she was about 5 or 6 years old. And of course they dress the young girl in sort of raggedy old disgusting clothes and make sure she looks really dirty and scruffy with a beggar's bowl. And they were pushing her towards crowds coming out of the temple. So you get a new crowd coming out and they push the girl towards, and the girl kind of goes up there and looks all, you know, sort of distraught and everything, so they give her some money. And then kind of right behind the young girl is this really like despicable looking middle-aged woman who will quickly grab all of the money out of her bowl that she's gotten, you know, shove it in her pocket, and then forcefully shove her towards the next group. And there was like another sort of older guy who was, you know, directing the whole thing. And what he'd do is he'd like watch for the next group to see who was the more richer looking group, and he'd tell the middle-aged woman, you know, push her towards that group. And so it was like this rinse and repeat thing. And I saw them, you know, grabbing money out of her bowl 3 times and pushing it to 3 different crowds. So I was like, yeah, this is really bullshit. So I pulled out the camera and I started filming them, because I wanted to show you guys, just so you know what goes on, you know, because I would like to, like all of my subscribers, every single one of you guys who watch my videos, and anyone who ever comes to China, I want you to realize that giving money to beggars in China is the worst thing you can do for the beggars themselves, because it's like a big organized crime kind of a situation here, the beggar gangs. They're despicable. They're the lowest of the low. And they do things like they rent children. Like that young girl probably didn't even belong to any of them. They'll go to a poor family and they'll pay them like a daily rate or a weekly rate or a monthly rate or a yearly rate to rent that child to use for their little begging schemes. They will do things like purposefully disfigure people. So, you know, they might get someone young and then purposefully disfigure their limbs so that they look, you know, terrible and people feel pity and give them money. They do all these terrible kind of things, and it's basically kind of like a human trafficking thing going on there and all sorts of other nonsense. And they're tied to the triads and, you know, sort of organized crime and everything. And they're just basically scum. So every time you give a beggar money in China, you're basically feeding this criminal organization and contributing to child trafficking and so on and so forth. And this is why it makes my blood boil, because I've seen it firsthand. I've seen these things happen, and it really annoys me. So I've got another story how I actually stopped a sort of a child trafficking beggar gang on the Shenzhen metro, but that's for another time. Okay, back to this delightful story. Sorry, don't want to make this too negative. Okay, so I'm busy filming these people, at least I thought, but what I'd done is I'd actually turned the camera off. So I was just pointing the camera at them, and the guy, the controlling sort of older controlling guy, saw me and gave me the stink eye. He disappears for a little while, and all of a sudden this like really grubby sort of guy comes up to me. Now you can see he's definitely the man in charge, and he comes and shambles on over to me. So I'm holding the camera like this, and he grabs both my wrists here with his filthy, disgusting, grubby hands, and he grabs on really tight, and he says in Chinese, you know, "Hello, friend, give me some money." So I said to him in Chinese, I said, "No, I'm not going to give you a cent." And he's like, "No, you're taking photos, so you must give me money." So I said to him, "No, I'm not going to give you any money." Then he said, "You're not allowed to take photos here." So I said, "Well, it's a public place," because this is literally on the street, just outside the temple. And, you know, there are actually police and security guards nearby because they're doing crowd control. You know, this is an incredibly crowded area because, you know, it's New Year, Chinese New Year, and there are people everywhere. So I said to him, "This is a public area, you know, in Chinese. 这个是不是一个公开的地方?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's a public area." So I said, "Well, I'm allowed to take photos in a public area." And he said, "No, this is our China. Only our Chinese people can take photos in our China. You are a foreigner. You are not allowed to take photos in China." So I said to him, "That's bullshit. You know, I've been here, you know, a long time. I know what I can and can't do. You know, I make YouTube videos for a living. I go out there and film in public all the time." So I said to him, I basically called him on it, and I said, "Bullshit. Let's go ask those policemen." And he's like, "Yeah, let's go to the police and they're going to arrest you." And I said, "Okay, let's do it." So I physically dragged him, because he was still holding onto my arms, over to two policemen that were standing there. And I said to the policeman, I was kind of, as I approached them, I started shouting to them. I said, "Hey, this guy says that because I'm a foreigner, I'm not allowed to take photos here." And they looked very kind of confused at me for a while, and they just said, "Pai pai ba," which means like, "Go ahead, you know, take as many photos as you want." Then he kind of turned to them and he's like, "No, this foreigner is coming to our country to take photos of us Chinese people, and these foreigners are not allowed to come into our country and do this," you know, that kind of thing. And they just ignored him. They didn't say anything to him. So I said to him again, "Look, I'm allowed to take photos here." And he's like, "No, you're not." Then he like actually let go and started to argue with the police again. I was getting really annoyed at this point. So I just said to the police again, "Look, tell him I'm allowed to take photos here." And they just like kind of ignored him and again just addressed me and said, you know, "Pai pai ba." So it means like take photos. Now, I mean, I understand the score here. These beggars, they've got kind of deals with the police, you know, because it's all organized crime and stuff. And they've got them on their, you know, they've got this kind of what's called guanxi, because they shouldn't actually be there harassing all the people coming out of the temple anyway. And there are tons of police all over the place, but they're not doing anything about it. The reason is because the beggars have an agreement with them. Anyway, they didn't want to get involved. the police. They didn't really want to do anything. But this beggar started to get furious, and he started to really chastise the police by saying, you know, these foreigners are coming into our country, they just want to make China look bad, and they want to do, you know, he's trying to drum up this nationalist sort of fervor, I should say. And, you know, he wasn't being successful, and he was getting furious because they wouldn't acknowledge him. I was actually having a bit of a chuckle, but at the same time, I realized the situation I was in was not the best in the world. You know, the guy is obviously like really he knows that I was there filming them. He's really ticked off. He's got his whole gang nearby, and I don't know who's skulking around in the crowds and who might try and come stab me in a kidney or something. So I thought this was my time to leave. So I just basically said to the police, thanks, and I told him, you know, I'll shoot photos in public if I want to shoot photos in public, and took a quick exit. Anyway, so that's the story. I apologize for not having enough footage of the incident, and I thought I was filming him, and that makes it even worse because I was putting myself really sort of out on the, you know, on the line there, having my camera in the guy's face and filming these beggars, and then it turns out I don't have any of the footage. Anyway, I still have the story, still relate the story to you. And it's been a long time since I've just done a casual sit down, you know, have a beer and tell a story video for all you guys. So I hope you enjoyed it. So I think the positive thing that you can take away from this little story of mine, because that's pretty much where it ends, is basically don't give money to beggars in China, because you're just helping scumbags and crime lords and all sorts of other nonsense, you know, human trafficking and whatnot. Stay away from beggars, ignore them, and yeah, you're actually helping people by doing that. So you can make a difference. And the way you can make a difference is by not giving any money to beggars. Anyway, for those of you who are curious as to where the gratuitous drone shots and sort of musical montage thing, intro that I normally have in my videos is, well, it's not going anywhere. It's coming up in just a few seconds. I've decided to move that to the end of my videos because a lot of newcomers who come to view my videos, they turn on the video and they're assaulted by this kind of music montage, and they click off because they think it's not what they came to see. So I think it's an important part of my videos. I'd actually like your opinion, you my subscribers. Please tell me down below, because I enjoy making them. I enjoy showing you guys what life on the streets in China looks like, you know, and I like the whole sort of 80s vibe and, you know, all that kind of other nonsense, and it's definitely a part of what I do. Anyway, guys, I've had a couple of beers, as you can probably tell. Can't wait to see you in the next video, and you know the drill. As always, unlike beggar lords, I'd like all of you guys out there to stay awesome. Just how big the answer is, where the answers can be found. We're going to get to that in just a minute.